ones who, let's say, let's get this show on the road. So here's what I thought we could do today. I'm going to just a couple of open-ended questions like, how's it going? And anyone who's challenged by any particular thing, maybe it's an ingredient difference that you're trying to tweak, or just getting a good foundational sense of what do I mean by plant-centered versus plant-based versus vegan versus vegetarian, or any of those things that seem to be, sometimes they stumble over each other. And then I thought I'd spend a little time with, in case you were branching out away from your own dinner table, what are your choices and how do you make your choices when you're in restaurants or with takeout or with delivery? And I have a little page that I'll share with you to do that. So let me start welcoming you again, as Barbara did, and also to say, how's it going? This is where we're all saying, I don't need to be convinced that plant-centered or plant-based. And I'm just going to say plant-centered, plant-based for me are interchangeable. It means that you're doing your best because you know it's a good idea to put more plants on your plate. Whether that just, for some of us, that's saying, I'm going to replace most of my protein with a plant source of protein. But protein shouldn't eclipse everything else. Like, what else can I do to make my plate more colorful, to make my plate more satisfying, more interesting, easier? Because sometimes I think we do have a notion that a plant-centered meal takes a lot more prep, washing and trimming and cooking very carefully, whereas somehow we think it can be easier without so many plants. And in fact, plants are the easiest. Okay, so when I say I'm going to ask you to kind of keep in mind, tell me how it's going, where are some of your barriers, what are some of the things that kind of make you hesitate before taking the next, expanding your menu. Let me take a minute or 10 or so minutes to talk about, if you're dining out or ordering in, how to make some choices on plant-based menu items. So allow me to share with you a very humble page that I like to call the Community Support Plant-Based Eating Community Support Meeting on Zoom. So, tips on dining out to make foods more easy. Okay, wait a minute. This is the introductory page, and now I'm going to go to the fancy page, which I was sure it was right in there, minimized with the rest. So we're going back to Northwest Blanc's initiative, plant-based campaign, and restaurant tips for plant-based choices. Here we go. Here we go, she said with confidence. Here it goes. Okay. Now, I've kind of put things, as you can see, in a, it's either let's eat out or let's get delivery, depending on where how close you are, how much you feel like I'd rather stay in the house or rather I'd have someone bring it to me, or let's go out. What kind of restaurant, what kind of appetizers, what kind of main dishes, sides, and desserts? Now, this won't be me talking at you. I want you to also tell me what you might do in the same situation, because this is how we can integrate the plant-based or plant-centered menu. So I started out with Chipotle. I don't own stock. They won't even give me a coupon, but I started out with Chipotle. And I know that everything that they will serve you can be without any animal-based items. So certainly the burrito or the burrito bowl can be made with tofu. It can be made with the black beans or the pink beans. And of course you get the sauces and the corn, the lettuce. Sour cream doesn't mean sour cream is obviously based on a cow's milk product. And if you're doing plant-based or plant-centered, there's no reason to avoid sour cream. It's up to you whether you enjoy it and will enhance the flavor of your meal. In fact, I have been at Chipotle when someone will say, you can only give me half the amount of chicken, but double the amount of black beans. Seems to me a perfectly reasonable way to go about it. And of course, guacamole and the other salsas are also welcomed in a plant-centered meal. I don't have any dessert thoughts on Chipotle. And again, if I mention something that has an animal product in it, such as ice cream or frozen yogurt, it doesn't mean it's inappropriate. It just means that it's something that's a choice in addition to your other plant foods. So if I say, let's go in the local deli, appetizers and main dishes are kind of blank, can you tell? That's because you could do any variety of sandwiches. It could be a cheese sandwich, it could be cheese tomato, but not a bacon, lettuce, and tomato. When it comes to the sides, a side of slaw, a side of cucumbers, a side of cucumber tomato salad, very Mediterranean, it's delicious. Fruit salads are wonderful. A local diner or a pub will, almost all of them now have some form of veggie burger, whether it's in beyond, oh, there's so many names, and they each have slightly different ingredients. What they each assure the consumers that none of them are based on an animal. I swore I wasn't going to cough. So I won't. Okay, so you get a veggie burger. You might know there's a pub on 238th Street that has a very good menu, the Bronx Ale House. They will note if you get the veggie burger on a brioche bun, that the veggie burger is vegan, meaning there's no animal products, but the bun may have butter, which is an animal product. But if you're just doing plant-centered, the bun is no problem. Avocado toast is welcome. There's a buffalo cauliflower. Again, I don't have stock and I don't get a coupon, but you want to know you can go places and expand your plant-centered menu. Hummus is available, salads, lentil soup is always welcome. I've seen quite a few different diners and pubs that'll serve succotash, and that will be without the addition of shrimp or sausage. So that's sort of succotash, almost gumbo, but not quite, because a gumbo is often going to have shellfish, sausage, and chicken in it. Falafel is always welcomed at some pubs and diners. If you find one that serves like you're never going to eat it this good again, please pass the name along to all of us, because that's some good food. And I find food trucks have lots of options. It's just a matter of saying, if you're going to buy a falafel, you have no restrictions there because there's no egg. The ingredients usually don't include any animal-based foods like butter. Okay, let's go on. What if I'm going to a Japanese restaurant? Everything on the menu similarly lends itself to plant-centered. If you will replace your protein with the plant, tofu is good, black beans are good. I'm going to be so hungry when I finish talking about this. If you're going for a soup, a miso soup is good. And I'm going to slide down to the Chinese restaurant. I'm always challenged when the soup option is wonton, because that's almost always going to be pork. If it does say vegetable dumpling, then my question is, if the dumpling is not steamed, or most of the dumplings are browned and then steamed, what kind of fat was used in the browning of the dumpling? And you'd say, who's using lard? Well, if you wander around the streets at night, not to make it sound like I'm sort of a dangerous person, but when restaurants have put their boxes and their cans out for the commercial pickup, sometimes you'll see a can of lard. So if it's a Buddha's delight, meaning that it will have lots of vegetables and tofu but no animals, it's hard to be absolutely certain if some of the sauteing wasn't done in lard. It's a simple question to a restaurant to want to know. On the other hand, if you're not vegan, and there's no reason to worry about lard being the source of fat, and Buddha's delight is just eternally delicious. Vegetable fried rice. Once again, what's it fried in? But if you're not vegan, the options of having the mushrooms and the corn and the peas and the bean sprouts are all welcome. If you're going to a Latin restaurant, which is almost unfair to say rice and beans. Rice and beans are all over the world. They're not exclusive to Latin, but that's definitely going to be on the menu. My finding is that the beans are usually pureed, and I like my beans whole. So it's, once again, just ask at your server. And there's also lots of fajitas or tortilla or tacos where one can blend more vegetable or plant foods. If you want sour cream or not, or cheese or not, those are options. Now, Applebee's actually has a vegetarian menu guide, which lends itself to the same idea of decision making. You and I turn to the menu, and the menu says, let's say, again, I gotta tell you, I don't have a coupon, I don't have stock. We're just gonna talk about Applebee's. Okay. So these are some of the menu items like nachos. As long as you're not concerned about absolute vegan, then you would say no beef, no, depending on what specialties, no bacon or something like that. Crunchy onion rings with honey barbecue sauce sounds good to me. But depending on your preference for vegan versus vegetarian versus more plant-centered, you may want to be aware that some of the cheeses that might be used have been coagulated with rennet, which is an enzyme, and that would therefore not make it a vegan choice. But the rest of these, the white queso, the beer cheese dip, sounds kind of good, doesn't it? Okay. Mozzarella sticks, crispy bites. But once again, if it has a cheese, you would wonder. These also might be some concerns for other sort of range of what your food choices might or might not include. Okay, salads. We're still at Applebee's. Okay, let's make sure we know where we are here. But this applies to everywhere. Let's say if it's a crispy chicken tender salad, you simply say, please leave the chicken off. If it's a strawberry balsamic chicken salad, but no chicken, so it's a strawberry balsamic salad. You leave out the word, leave out the food. And here are some suggestions on dressings to avoid if they contain extra animal foods. What about breadsticks? Alfredo sauce. But the Alfredo, because it will also have a cheese and cream sauce, would be for a vegan choice, not your best move. Next one down, Southwest chicken bowl, but no chicken. And the bowl is full of lots of wonderful foods, and you may see this once again. I love how they call it irresistibles. All right, so we could do a item by item, but I think you see the pattern. There doesn't have to be a specific vegetarian menu. It's how to take the existing menu, ask for omission of the animal food if that's your choice. You could also ask for an extra on the bean or the corn or the broccoli or the carrots or things like that. Sides, baked potato, waffle fries, garlicky green beans. Oh yeah, good stuff. Signature coleslaw. And those are all in the, go for it column. Soups and sides, all down here, and desserts. Sizzling butter pecan blondie. Triple chocolate meltdown. Is anyone going to get in trouble by choosing that one? I think so. And a sugar dusted donut dipper. Now it says no powdered sugar. I'm not sure why, but you might remember that gelatin is based on animal connective tissue. So it's usually based on pork or beef. If there's a sugar that has a gelatin nature, or even jelly beans, or sometimes those kind of sprinkles and things, they may have a gelatin base, in which case it would be not a vegan choice. But if you're eating sugar dusted donut dippers, I think that tap on the shoulder that says we're only eating healthy here, that tap got unnoticed. Okay. So there's the rest of the items on here, not just the main dishes, but also the tips on how to select foods that will be in concert with your goal to increase the plants on your plate. Let me see if anybody here today wants to kick around some thoughts about dining out on a plant-based or plant-centered goal.
Okay, if you want to speak, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you want to talk, a trick is you just have to hold down your space bar and you will be unmuted for the time you were speaking. Or feel free to put anything in the chat.
And by the way, if you want a copy of this Applebee's vegan menu guide and vegetarian menu guide, it's online. I'll be happy to put in a link if you'd like, but if you Google Applebee's vegetarian menu, this pops up. I thought we might also, if there are no, there's no flood of questions about dining out or having delivery. Is anyone thinking about ingredients for their upcoming holidays for Easter and Passover that might be more plant-based, or to replace some of the animal products that might be table standards?
I wanted to go back to the dining out again briefly. My experience has been that a lot of Asian restaurants offer a choice of protein, and that may be beef and chicken, but also tofu. So it's very easy in a lot of places to alter the menu. But on the downside, especially in Chinese restaurants, it seems like a lot of the sauces, regardless of what fat they contain, seem to be pretty heavy on fat and sometimes on sugar. So regardless of, plant-based or not, they're not necessarily the healthiest choice. And sometimes if it's takeout, I just briefly rinse off the food. I don't take all the sauce off, but some of it.
Nan, I do the same thing. When it comes in the house, I take a deep breath and say, I know I want to eat this, but somehow there's a little voice that says, let's work with it first.
Yeah.
And if at worst, what I might do if I've had Chinese takeout is pull out some broccoli that might either be left over or in my crisper drawer or in the freezer, and prepare it and blend it. So at least I dilute some of that sugar and fat and salt from the soy sauce. So yes, we can tweak it and do, kind of raise the bar on the health markers that way. There are a lot of Chinese restaurants that will have a dieter's menu, which doesn't mean we're all dieting, but at least you know that this means it's going to be steamed or very, very minimal amount of fat incorporated. I don't know how many, now that it's post-COVID, well, we're not really post-COVID, but I meant post-lockdown, when restaurants were adapting to more delivery for their survival. Some of those menu items might have been put on pause, but you can always ask if they do have the dieter's menu. A lot of delis, a lot of diners and Chinese restaurants, I remember seeing those. That's a good idea. Thank you for also throwing that in there. That sounds messy. If anyone hears that, you can say, what am I supposed to do? Take my food, put it in a colander, run water over it? And the answer is yes. And, give it a good shake, and you usually will end up with something very tasty and just a little lighter. Now, Deborah Johnson, our other nutritionist, has some good recipes for making your own Russian dressing, making a lot of things that you can use for embellishing on delivery or takeout or other restaurant items that you kind of are hesitant to use their rich, creamy sauce. And when she runs one of the support community meetings, she probably will have some good ones that she can share with you. More questions about dining out or getting delivery? Thank you, Nan.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to go to this one, which I presented initially. I thought we would spend some time, again, with the welcome to say, how's it going? And which meal is most challenging to increase the plants in your menu? Is it because of the time to do that? Is it because of the cost of those ingredients? Is it a skill level? So I'd like to hear from anyone as you're here in the plant-based support community, what would be a useful bit of information for us to toss around today?
Hi there, this is Loretta Knapp. I'm trying, and baby steps. Now I have one question before I forget. When the avocado, the guacamole turns brown, can you still eat that?
Yes, it's not toxic. It's just sometimes it might taste a little bitter.
Okay, because I got some in a little container, you know, it's a spicy guacamole. And I just opened it today and I see the top of it is brown. So I was just wondering.
So I like that question. I heard it one way, but I'm going to answer it in two ways. It always turns brown as a sign that it's been exposed to air, kind of like apples do.
Right.
So it's really not a big deal. But if you're like me, and one of these days I'm going to have this image ready, a picture I've seen with 4 avocados in a vertical line. Next to the first avocado, it says Monday. And then it says not yet. The next avocado says Tuesday, not yet. The next avocado says Wednesday, now. And the next avocado says Thursday, too late. And that's how almost every avocado I've ever brought in my house ends up. I'm always too late. Don't know how I did it. And they're brown when you open them up. So in part, it's how you handle them. That, you know, bruising is going to be a problem, and they should be kept in a brown paper bag to enhance their ripening. And they have to be eaten at the perfect time. And once they are bruised, they will taste a bit bitter in that spot. But I'm from that, you know, my mom and dad were from the Depression, so I don't throw food away. I don't eat it. I'll find some way to make it tasty. Maybe a little spritz of vinegar. That helps your mouth say, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Well, when I was just thinking today, when I opened it, it's a small container that's already prepared. But then I was saying they must have something that you can almost get like one little helping in a container. And then you use that, and then, you know, it's good.
I agree, Loretta. They do put things in there to block the change of to turning brown. In fact, we could do it with our own apples and so on, just by sprinkling some kind of acid like lemon juice. But it is disappointing, isn't it? When
it is, but it was good. I ate it anyway. You know, I said, oh, heck, I'm eating this. You know, I'm eating this. But the other thing that I'm having a problem with it is because I guess the skill. I wanted to make delicious, you know, roasted vegetables. And I tried it twice and I wasn't happy. See, I like to be happy when I eat it, you know, but I ate it anyway.
So, but did you coat them in olive oil or something like that?
Oh, I did.
And
but
they
what
were
I thought,
a single layer on the baking sheet?
I did.
And they were about 400 degrees?
Yes, I did.
And they shrink while they're cooking because, of course, water vapor comes out of it. So do you think you need some more herbs, or they just didn't?
I don't know what I needed, but what I did see, I saw this up in Costco, but then they didn't have it when I went back. It was, see, I think I need something that's somewhat prepared, and then I would just, you know, put the finishing touches. I think it said fire roasted vegetables. And I said, oh, that's what when I went back to get them, they didn't have them. But I'm going to be looking out for something like that. I'm not a good cook. I used to be, but I'm not a good cook anymore.
I bet you are.
So these are my problems. It's it's making things like I made a 15 bean soup. You get that, the dried
Wow.
beans, but
Yeah.
then, I get tired of it.
Yeah.
I give some away, but still I'm tired of it. I made chili, still I'm tired of it. Then I said, oh, I'm going to have some fish because that will help me. But anyway, I'm trying and I'm open to suggestions. And now, as you said, I think, I might try and, go to Chipotle and get a burrito one day. Another day there's a falafel place up on Central Avenue. I'll get myself a falafel pita just to get, going and, and just like for 5 days a week, if I have something. I also I'm trying. I went to get the purple carrot. I have one box in my freezer that I'm going to use for that. So I have 3 days covered. So,
Now, when you
so
say
anyway,
purple carrot, are you meaning literally the carrots that are purple, or are you talking about that food delivery
the
company?
food, it's already prepared, the frozen.
I have heard fabulous things about them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have one, so then I'll see, I'll keep my eyes open, and I want to go up to Trader Joe's or to Whole Foods and, just look around.
So tell me, if we had this conversation 6 months ago, what would be different on your dinner plate? Or
Oh,
your,
well, I'm trying to eat more beans. That's the one thing.
Mhm.
I used to eat vegetables, but the other thing that I tried to do, it's kind of a failure, but I'm sort of eating a piece of it right now. I wanted to make like a little dessert, and there was a recipe that I saw for oats and bananas, ripe bananas, and put a little bit of vanilla, and you could even put peanut butter in it. Oh, there, I should have put raisins. They're not good. But anyway, but I'm eating them. I'm
They're
eating them
not
instead of
Haagen-Dazs,
something
no.
else,
Yeah.
you know?
Um,
So I'm trying to change, some of the things that I've been eating, to more healthy things. That's where I'm at.
I
And
suspect you didn't describe your frequent corned beef sandwiches or hot dogs. So I think you've been eating well. You just want to put more
oh, I have, but I want to eat better. See, this is
eat
the thing.
better.
I want to
Yeah.
eat better.
I can definitely respect that. Yeah, eat better.
But this is helpful, it is helpful. And
Good.
you get, like dates. I've been eating, dates because dates are very good for you.
Mhm.
So I'll have a date, instead of a piece of chocolate, there's things like this.
I think you could also put dates, a little peanut butter inside the date. It's a lot of
Right,
work.
and a
Maybe
walnut.
it's going to be a mess, but it's fun.
Uh-huh.
I have a
And
friend
then a
who
little,
won't touch dates because she thinks they look like water bugs.
oh.
We
Well,
all
anyway,
have something.
my ears are open and I want to learn, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Maudene,
Yes.
I wanted to offer a little idea perhaps on the roasting of vegetables.
Oh,
Ready.
good.
I have found that the thicker vegetables, the carrots and the parsnip, kind of need to be covered very loosely. I put them on first, I slice them, they laid out, a spritz of olive oil, and then some seasoning, whatever. And then if I just put a sheet of foil over it, not even tucked, but just a sheet of foil over it, and only at about 325 or 350, and as soon as I light the oven. So I kind of use the heating time as beginning cooking time. And it takes a bit longer, but I check every 20 minutes or so, and some vegetables are 20 minutes and some are 40 minutes. Then I'll take the foil off and then turn the temperature up to 375 or 400. And they seem to cook a little more inside before they get too burnt around the outside, that good kind of crispy burning. So
that's great advice. I find also that it sounds as though it's easy. You just put them on the pan and shove them in the oven, and when you come back in 40 minutes, they're all ready. They cook at different rates, and you're right, they need some steaming, so the lid or the light sheet of foil will hold some moisture in
Yeah.
to do the cooking. Or they could even be parboiled. Now you got to do 2 steps in the cooking.
Yeah.
But at
You're
least
dirtying the pot again, another pot.
yes, exactly.
Who wants
So
that?
it's hit and miss, but thank you. That's good, really good advice. But if you put a carrot next to a yellow squash, by the
Yeah.
time the yellow squash is cooked, the carrot is looking at it and saying, "Okay, you went too fast."
Right.
So-
But then what I sometimes do is I'll put a squash on it on the same tray as almost any vegetable, a sliced in half squash, and that'll just keep me in one pan at one time and take some vegetables off as I go.
Or maybe the squash can be cut thicker and the carrot thinner, so that the penetration of heat will match the density of the vegetable, and they'll cook together.
Could be, sure. Always a possibility. Oh, I was not referring to a zucchini squash, I was referring more to a butternut, or I always forget what the oval yellow striped one is called.
Me too.
You know that one.
Barbara's the gardener. What is that one called, Barbara?
Now you're challenging me. I'm going to have to look because I know what you're talking about.
Maybe an M.
All right, I'm going to look it up and I will get right back with
Okay.
So well, I was meaning the zucchini and yellow squash. They do cook so quickly.
Very quickly.
Even when I've tried to do them in to look like flat noodles, by the time I leave them in too long, it's like the avocado. Not yet, now, too late.
Yeah.
That they stick to the foil no matter how much olive oil I've rubbed on it. So it's once again getting the hang of the length of time and the density. But I like doing those. They cook quickly on the stovetop. It's almost like not worth it to turn on the oven, the zucchini and yellow squash.
So
I
you're talking about the delicata squash?
The delicata, not an FD. I find that baking them, roasting the vegetables on parchment paper is a very, because you can bend it off a little bit if it's a little stuck, but I've really never, once they cool, they kind of scrape right off.
Yeah, they do. The parchment, I was new to parchment. I mean, I only started using parchment paper maybe 8 years ago, and you can tell I'm a little older than average. But what a difference. It was a game changer. And I thought, that's it. No more foil or anything like that. If the parchment paper, if I've run out, I pout and use foil. But yeah, parchment is the best. It doesn't give as crisp an edge, but it's non-stick like a chin.
Yeah, that is interesting. I don't think I've noticed. I think I've been using parchment paper for so long, I forgot the foil already. I use as little foil as I possibly can.
Mhm.
So that was my thoughts.
Thank you. Those great. I wrote these tips down. I just want you to know that.
Well, thank you.
Yes. Everyone else, come on. We're still like 15 minutes before we want to conclude our first communities, plant-based or plant-centered eating community support group here.
So does anybody have any challenges or maybe successes that they've had that they'd like to share?
I just want to talk about, this is Nan again. I have very little experience roasting vegetables, but I recently tried a recipe that was roasted cauliflower with chickpeas. And I don't know if I got it right. I did use olive oil. It said 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. My oven tends to run a little hot, so I started checking it every 5 minutes after the 15-minute point. And I did take it out after 25 minutes, at which point it never really got golden. It was, some of it was brown, but it wasn't burnt. But I just felt wasn't sure it was the best use of my time, because this was a recipe that used the zest of an entire lemon and all of the juice from that lemon and also some capers. And I felt like I could have just thrown the cauliflower into boiling water and then drained it, and it would have had just, as much flavor in all likelihood, because, and also, 3 fat cloves of garlic. So, it was like, it really didn't matter what you did with the cauliflower. I didn't feel like I did the best job of roasting it, but in the end, it was like, who cares? And my husband and I both really enjoyed this recipe.
It had some awesome ingredients, capers, lemon juice, garlic. Wow, you could eat styrofoam with that combo and it would be good. So, I think you did a great job, but I agree with you. Sometimes it's not as simple and one off as it sounds like it's going to be, but it's the journey, not the destination. Let's try another way to do it. But you might say next time you buy a head of cauliflower, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and put it in a pot. And
yeah, and I also
Con Ed keeps going up. The maybe you guys don't pay utilities separate, but gas and electric are a monster.
They sure are now. I also the recipe called for cutting the florets, of course, but I trimmed the core and chopped it, and I put that on the roasting pan as well. It's like, why waste good food? And if I hadn't done that, I would have eaten it raw, because there are very few vegetables I will not eat raw. I like food that I can feel in my mouth.
Right.
Good.
Right. I happen to like this
ever
one.
made kale chips? So kale chips were really hot, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. And now you could see them at Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and those see-through square containers. Similarly, I would buy the kale, rinse it, cut the leaves, and then really get as much water off as possible, fluff it up in some olive oil and put it on a single layer on a baking sheet for about, again, a half an hour, but keep checking it. And they were fun, but for the time it takes you to wash, trim, season, spread out carefully so that they're not too many overlapping, but they're not, too many far apart, and check the oven. You eat those kale chips in about 14 seconds. So it's almost the question of, I enjoyed that, but was it worth it? And I remember doing it as a cooking demo, and even now, 10 years later, people, oh, you're the kale chip lady. I remember you.
As far as I'm concerned, you cannot have too many kale chips. I can eat an entire head of kale that way.
And that's the hitch, is that I could eat them. And again, in 14, maybe I'm exaggerating. Let's go to 20 seconds. But and they also break up into tiny little pieces. And before you know it, you're basically eating things off the tips of your fingers. All good.
All good. All
Never
good.
leave a drop behind.
I find that those little boxes are yummy, but very, very fatty.
Yeah, well, the oil. Yes.
Very. I use a lot less oil at home, but yes, they disappear. And if it's not just me, it's instantly.
And, yeah.
Instant.
And they're better than potato chips,
I do that with potato chips too.
Of course. Of course. If I said I didn't, lightning will come through this window and strike me. That'll be worse than coughing. Are there any topics you'd like us to get ready for another session? Because we're going to do this a month from now, and it'll again be a Tuesday from 1 to just shy of 2 o'clock. I think by then, I looked up dates. Passover is April 15th to April 23rd. So by then we will have already had the
The holidays.
rush of wonderful holiday foods.
Mhm.
Easter table, Passover, taking away the, why am I all of a sudden at a loss for words? I was trying to find my note page. Okay. Anything with leaven. But none of those scream that they could violate a plant-based approach. In fact, they're everything on either of the festive tables is all good. Does anybody want to see any more of the two documents that I had up? I think not. We can see each other's happy faces instead. There is on YouTube, there are a lot of both vegan, vegetarian, and kind of the shortcut oven baking things. I might share one with you if I can. What do you think, Barbara?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna go into my Chrome and go to my bookmarks. Hope my bookmarks are proper, because you never know who's gonna see your bookmarks. Okay,
We're taking notes.
taking notes. Oh, some of them do look a little dark. Okay. One pan chicken and veggies. Thank goodness I found it before you saw all the other crazy things. If the I'm waiting for the video to come. Does the audio bother anyone? Okay. I'm sorry, we just have to wait for a silly commercial. Okay. So this is slightly under 1.5 minutes. So it does have a showing you making these blends for dressings, but you could also buy these at the supermarket. And I'll be happy to share the link for this in the chat if anyone wants to borrow it, or I'll share it with Barbara. Okay, so this one was one with a variety of powdered ingredients, and all the ingredients are listed at the bottom of the screen. So our peppers, now this could be tofu, doesn't have to be chicken. It could similarly be fish. And now it gives us the 425 for 25 minutes. They make it look magical, right? And here again is your highly plant-centered meal with a little bit of chicken. What do you think?
So that's interesting. So basically they showed the same meal, but different sauces.
Yes.
So that you could roast everything, put a different sauce on everything, and you have a slightly different meal on different days.
Correct. And again, I'm happy to put the link in the chat if anyone wants.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm just gonna just make sure I replay that I'm not giving you the buttermilk fried chicken sandwich, which also sounds fabulous. Okay, so this is the right one.
There you go.
Okay, copy. I'm gonna close it, and down here in the chat, here's the link. Now, the one that we just saw, there is a version of it in for vegan, in which some other plant-based protein source is included. I just don't happen to have that one in my bookmarks, but I've seen many.
You could probably do the same thing, say, with tofu. Just cook the tofu with the sauce on it, and it would take on the flavor of the sauce.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or mushrooms. You can add mushrooms would be good with that.
Oh, now you're talking.
Then that has nice protein in it.
Yeah, everybody at Barbara's house tonight.
I was drinking coffee.
See, I think I can minimize the rest of this part here. And I'm going to stop share again, but I'll keep the chat link up there. So I think that one also looked like it had parchment paper. Got it again, stumbling on words at the bottom of the chicken and vegetables. And clearly, whoever created that video had already cooked their black beans and brown rice. So it's the small amount of chicken that really was impressive in that it gave you the satisfaction and the taste and the protein.
Right.
Is almost everyone still working on ways to replace their animal protein, or just ways to add more plants?
Both.
Both, yeah. I think most of it's easier to think a quarter of the volume of your plate or your meal could be the protein food, whether that's tofu or chicken or fish or, you know, some other critter, or egg or cheese. But then we kind of lose, and this is what Nan was saying, I'm trying to put more vegetables out there, and I tried roasting them, and I tried this ways to say how to add a third vegetable to the meal as opposed to just one or two. I think that's a challenge, because we feel like that's a third pot or a third process. So the more often they can all be cooked together, the better, which is one of the reasons why I love that sort of succotash and gumbo, where I'm getting the corn and the tomato, and it could be something else. It could be okra, it could be celery, and they're all stewing for a short while in a pot, and you get lots of more vegetables, lots more color without more effort. But I agree with Nan again, you don't want to eat the same thing every day. How are we doing, Barbara?
I think we're good. It's we're almost done. If anybody has anything else that they would like to discuss, otherwise, that is